Welcome to the FEI Nations Cup competition in Ocala, Florida. I am Melanie Smith-Taylor, bringing this to you live on a beautiful afternoon here in Ocala. The first rider is only moments away, coming into the ring. FEI Nations Cup Series has been totally revitalized and restructured for this season. This will be the third year that the FEI has sponsored the Nations Cup. FEI is a name. It's a combination of horseman and horse, representing chivalry and the horsemanship. It's a Saudi equestrian fund that sponsors the FEI Nations Cup Series. The qualifying points in each region: the winner will receive 100 points, second place 90 points, third place 80 points. Today there are 6 teams in this competition, but only 3 will win qualifying points. The United States, Canada, and Mexico representing this region. The restructuring of the Nations Cup Series is 7 regions now, 2 divisions in Europe, and here we see the 6 countries that will be represented here in the Nations Cup: Ireland, Mexico, United States, Venezuela, Colombia, and Canada. And those teams will compete in that order. 4 riders on each team looking for those qualifying points. The Canadians and the Americans have sent their top squads because this class is really important for them. There's only 3 qualifiers in this region. As we see, the first rider, the leadoff rider for Ireland, will be Dara Kenny, then followed by Mexico, USA, Venezuela, Colombia, and Canada. Speaking with both Mark Laskin, who's the chef for the Canadian team, and Robert Ridlin, the chef for the US team, they're taking this very seriously. They have brought their top squads, and they are really looking to win, because the second competition in this region is in Mexico right after the World Cup in Las Vegas, where they won't be able to send their top teams. So they expect Mexico to be really tough to beat down there. So we see all of the entries here. Only 24 going today. As I said, 4 riders from each of the 6 teams. And there's should be a fun class, a great lineup here. They're giving the ring that's final drag and water. The riders have been very complimentary of the footing here. Tom Trezzeri's organization did the footing, and it supposedly held up very well. Has a lot of bounce. Horses jump well off of it. Martin Otto is the course designer. His mentor was the famous Olaf Peterson from Germany. And Martin's very excited to be doing the course here. He told me as I walked the course with him that he really wanted to build a very inviting course. He feels that it is, and to get everybody a chance to be confident going into the second round. 15 jumping efforts, 12 obstacles, and the time allowed 77 seconds, which the riders feel could be tight. And usually in Nations Cup, the time faults always become a factor. So we'll see how the course is riding as we go along. A big open water that's 3.80 meters. This is the final line, the triple combination, and very thin planks on the B and C of the combination. And the last oxer is quite large. So here's a view of the course. It starts over an oxer at the far end of the ring, down to the vertical 2, to another vertical number 3, 8, 9, 10 strides. Between there'll be a lot of different stridings done there. Don't think that's a big deal. Then this first bigger square oxer on the course, it's 1.50 meters by 120 wide, but it's somewhat narrow. Going to the double combination, 1.48 meters to 1.50 meters, to the big oxer 150 at 1.70 meters wide. And then around the end to a wall with no wings, and those tops come off very easily. To the big open water, as I said, 3.80 meters. Then there's an option here two narrow fences. They can, doesn't show in the video there, but on course it's an option. Two narrow fences. They can take either the left or the right side, and they're equal height. It just depends on how they bow out after the water. And then back to the big square oxer down to this triple combination, very wide, the distance, plenty of room there to the two verticals, and then the biggest oxer on the course, 1.50 meters, 170 wide, and it's very square and very large. 77 seconds time allowed. And again, it's a beautiful day, no wind, low 50s, so it's a little fresh, quite chilly this morning, I must say. So remember, in this Nations Cup, the best three scorers from each round, the best three of the four from each round count. 4 penalties for a rail down, 4 penalties for a refusal, 4 penalties for a foot in the water, elimination for a fall, elimination for 2 refusals, and elimination for going over the time limit. 1 penalty for every seconds over the time allowed. So Ocala is here in the middle of Marion County, and the people here like to say that it's the horse capital of the world because there's such a density and diversity of horses. There's a lot of driving here. Chester Weber's farm is nearby where they hold a lot of competitions. The U.S. 3-day event team spends winters down here training their young squads. The horse show here in Ocala has over 1,900 horses. The hunter jumper world here is quite expansive. And then, of course, the thoroughbred industry for so many years, beautiful farms, breeding farms, the sales. So there is a lot going on here in Ocala. So this is the Hits Post-Time Farms where this horse show is held. They have 22 permanent barns, 22 temporary barns, the tents, and as I said, over 1,900 horses, 12 show rings. It's so expansive. It's a beautiful place. Lots of paddocks for the horses to be turned out. Really a lovely place for these riders to spend the winter, these winter months showing. So most of these riders, again, have been preparing outdoors, either here or in Wellington, Florida, and as opposed to indoors as the Europeans on their circuit. So these horses have used to being out, but they're fresh. It's early in the year. This is the first Nations Cup of the year, starting here in Ocala for the first time at this place. This will be the first of 20 competitions throughout the world. 45 nations will be competing in this series, trying to qualify for the final in Barcelona in September. So the first horse is now on course. Dara Kenny on Piccolo from Ireland. Dara first came to the United States on a bursary program, a scholarship program, and he was supposed to spend 2 weeks with John Brennan and Missy Clark in North Run Farm, and he stayed 4 years. He said this was his college education. In 2012, he went out on his own and started his own place, riding for other people, and he's a real winner. He's a real rising star. Robert Splain, who is the chef to keep for Ireland, says this young man could be #1 in the world someday. So here he goes as the leadoff rider for Ireland. Kenny also competed on the Irish team at the WEG, and this is certainly one of his, maybe his best horse at this time.
Dara joining us here, looking to compete for Ireland at the Olympic Games. He was presented with the Special Achievement Award in the 2014 Irish Show Jumpers Club Awards in Naas, Ireland this year. So he got his start in the United States and showed horses for clients at North Run Stable in Wellington, Florida. In September 2012, he set up his own stables called Oakland Ventures, LLC.
Dara making the course look easy so far, and he's keeping quite a good clip. Being the leadoff rider, it's so important to not have a time fault. So the riders are watching closely the track he's taking around the course, where he's shaving seconds where he can. He opts to stay out and do the left side of the option there, the 2 narrow fences. And now coming down this last line. And beautiful round. First clear to start off the class. 69 seconds and change, so he's got plenty of time, but he really kept moving. He kept moving, he didn't waste any time anywhere, so we'll see whether this time allowed is going to be a problem. Certainly by judging by his round, it shouldn't be. Strong ride to the water, really jumps that well. It's such a good feeling when the first rider has a clear round. It really gives the whole team a good boost. So most of these teams will post a strong rider to go first. Second rider to go for Mexico, Caracini L. The rider is Plasencia, Luis Alejandro Plasencia.
One of Mexico's most promising young riders. He's been part of 4 teams in Nations Cup.
He's one of the country's most promising young riders, has been on 4 Nations Cup teams so far. 13-year-old Holsteiner is Caracini. Jumping those oxers well. The first oxer just caught him by surprise, had that back rail down. So it's on 4. And he takes the right side of the option there. It just depends on how they land over the water, how they're able to set up. Taking the inside, felt like would give him a little more time, but cut off a little more time most likely, because he's much slower than Dara Kenny. He's going to be really close to the time, and he is over. So the time allowed could be a factor today. Most definitely so. Luis Alejandro Plasencia from Mexico with Caracini finishes with 13 faults. There we see that last oxer coming down. It's very square, and he just hits that coming up. Ends up with 3 rails down and a time fault for 13 faults. So Mexico has 13 starting off, Irish with 0. Now the first rider for the United States of America, Lauren Huff and Ocala. Lauren has been on numerous Nations Cups for the United States, made her Olympic debut at the Sydney Olympics, and many times she has been the lead-off rider. She's very comfortable walking the course, knowing exactly how she wants to ride it. And they can count on her to put in a top round going first. This little mare, Ocala, had her aha moment a year ago here. Lauren's horse, at #1 horse at the time, Quick Study, couldn't come, and she brought her for a major Grand Prix, $1 million class here. And she jumped the course so easily, just tired a little at the end, had the last couple fences, but that's when she realized this mare could do it. She went on, jumped a clear round in the Ocala Grand Prix, won the Thursday Grand Prix in Geneva this year, has just had tremendous success with this tiny little mare. She stands only about 15 hands, and just a heart as big as the great outdoors. Lauren's now based out of England, but she's always based in Europe or England the last couple years so that she can compete over there. So she's clear coming down that last line. Big triple bar. Oh my goodness, it looked like she just started to add a stride, did a stutter step there. That was really interesting what happened. 4 faults coming out of the triple combination. She jumped in well, jumped the middle, and it looked like the distance was a little long, and the mare almost thought to take a second stride and just stuttered through it. But what a brave little mare to to go ahead and jump the last fence so beautifully. Here, let's see if we can see what happens. She jumps that well, and then she just almost takes another stride. She couldn't decide whether to take off or take another stride. But so brave, just cantered right on. Lauren kept her focus, so she finishes up with 4 faults and looking like she was going to put in a very strong clear.
So now we'll welcome in the first of our representatives from our Venezuelan riding team, Andres Rodriguez, aboard his entry wearing entry garments.
So the first rider now for Venezuela, Andres Rodriguez with Verdi.
A 13-year-old gelding will take the stage next, and these two just joined forces earlier last year. Been together now for just over a year. Andres Rodriguez.
Andres has been in 10 to 12 Nations Cups. He had a really good week 4 in Wellington recently. Did well in the big classes there. He's been training with Eddie Mackin, the great Irish rider, for the last 3 years. He just bought this horse Verdi last year, so getting to know him. This ring is so large that there are not many technical distances on this course. It's very spread out. The oxers and verticals placed equally around the ring. The course designer Martin Otto said he didn't want to make any traps anywhere. He wanted this to be a very fair, inviting course, because even though the United States, Ireland, Canada have their top riders and horses here, he wanted to make sure the less experienced teams from Colombia and Venezuela and even Mexico had a chance to get their confidence. He may raise a couple fences for the second round, but he wanted this to be a very fair course, and it, so far, it looks to be. I thought those planks would go down a lot more, because they're very, very light.
Well, it's not break again, just a single knockdown over the track here today. Comes at the A element of our triple combination. 4 faults in 75.48, pushes the time of touch, but stays within. So 4 faults will be the total score here.
There you can see from the side a great view, the 2 strides where Lauren with Ocala, she didn't fit in that second stride. She started to take off after 1 instead of fitting in the little second stride. So it was just a major error there. But
Number 1375 is Con Concreto Alberti.
so 13 faults for Rodriguez and Verdi.
A 10-year-old stallion, a Royal Dutch Warmblood. Daniel Blumen joining us here from Medellin, Colombia. 2014 has multiple top finishes in international.
Excuse me, 4 faults. Sorry, 4 faults for Andres and Verdi for Venezuela. Next in, we have Daniel Blumen on Concreto Aparti from Colombia. Daniel's very popular young rider living in the States. His first Olympic Games was in London, and he had a really good ride there. Maybe one of his favorite wins was the Puissance, where he jumped 2m2 in Dublin in 2013. Very popular rider around the world. He went a little wider to the water, added a stride there. Jumped the right side of that narrow. There go those planks. They're so narrow, and sitting on almost flat cup, so easy to knock down, especially after the big triple bar coming in a very roomy distance to the middle part, and then a little steadier to the last part coming out. Jumps really big over the triple bar and gets kind of flat and just doesn't get up over B, and then starts to shorten, but the horse doesn't really come back. He doesn't really shorten his stride there inside. So he finishes with 8 faults. Daniel Blumen, 8 faults for Columbia. And now the final of the first riders, the final 6th team. Canada rides last in this Nations Cup. And Jan Kandel was Showgirl, the leadoff rider for the 6th team, Canada. Canada won this Nations Cup in 2009, 2010, and last year in 2014 when it was held in Wellington. And Jan was on all 3 of those teams. He's had this mare Showgirl for the last 2 years, formerly ridden by Jonathan Azzelin. Jan was born in France, came to this country to work for Eric Lamaze, who anchors this team. And now he's on his own, but Eric has helped him get the ride on Showgirl, as well as Tiffany Foster's horses are all owned by the people that Eric rides for, Artisan Farms in Canada. It was interesting. We heard that both Jan and Tiffany and Eric just flew in this morning for the class. Their horses were here, but they had been elsewhere showing, and they just flew in this morning. So they're feeling very confident going into this. Ian Miller has been here showing, and the class is warming up to this. Ah, beautiful clear round. Beautiful clear round. He has jumped a lot of clears on this mare. She is really, really special. Really jumps. Look how high she gets over the last fence. But that triple combination is causing the most problems so far. The second part is a little bit tight. Certainly has caught several of the riders so far. So Jan Kandel with Showgirl from Canada finishes with a clear round. So we have 2 clears in the first go. In the first rotation, Ireland put in a clear with Dara Kenny, and then Jan Kandel for Canada. The next rider on course for Ireland, the second rider for Ireland, Lorcan Gallagher with Dictator. Lorcan works with Shane Sweetnam at Spy Coast Farm, who's also from Ireland, and Shane rode Dictator before, and they work for the Spy Coast Farm, and they do a lot of breeding. They compete, Shane and Lorcan both compete on a lot of stallions, horses that they breed themselves. They have a huge breeding program that they are very proud of. So Shane competed on this horse's sire. So far the horses are jumping the water well. That's good to see. This is Lorcan's first Senior Nations Cup, so he's got to have a few nerves in his tummy today. Oh, and how good that must feel. A clear round. Lorcan Gallagher from Ireland on Dictator, his first Senior Nations Cup, and he posts a clear go. It's hard to tell from this angle. He looked to be a little close at the water, but you just see dirt. No water splashing up there on the landing. So far in the FEI Nations Cup, we have 3 clears. You'll see on the scoreboard there, they mark out the score as we go, the drop score as we go. So the riders, we're always will see the best score possible for each team. The second rider now from Mexico, Sofia Larrea on Jumex Sport Archimedes. Sophia is now riding with the American Katie Prudent, now training with her. The chef to keep for this team this week is Katie's husband, Henri Prudent. According to Henri, this is probably the best horse on the team. This is a really nice horse, he said. She does 7 strides to the water. A few riders have held out and done 8 strides there, and most everyone now is going to the right side of the narrow, making sure that they just save a little extra time to try to stay under the time. The 77-second time allowed seems to be plenty lenient so far. Only one person with a time fault. And the triple combination is taking its toll. But the good thing is each part of the combination is coming down, not just one.
Well, it's an improvement on the scoreboard here for Team Mexico as we have just the 1 knockdown.
So Sofia Larrea from Mexico finishes up with 4 faults.
So far for our Mexican riding team for 4 fault effort. We'll turn our attention now to
the best they can do, we'll see, hopefully they can drop that 13 unless someone else has more faults than that. There's always 1 drop score in each round. So now the second rider for America, for the United States, Georgina Bloomberg, and her wonderful Austrian warm-blood mare, Juvena. I love Georgina's rides Juvena, that their names are so similar. But this has really been a wonderful mare for her. Georgina rode on her first Senior Nations Cup 10 years ago in Le Bowl when the American had an all-girls team that won the Nations Cup there. She was the anchor, jumped 2 clear rounds last year in Gijón, Spain, to help the United States win the Nations Cup there. And then Georgina won the Central Park Grand Prix last September. Georgina loves her mare. She says she herself is a feminist and she loves her mares that like to have their own way a little bit. Juvena likes to throw her head a good bit, a little bit of a funny mouth, but Georgina says if she just tries to leave her alone, that doesn't bother her because she knows when she gets to the jump, she really tries to clear it. Oh, and a great ride by Georgina on Juvena. Look at that smile. She has become such a reliable rider. She's really making a comeback. After having a baby last year, Jasper's a year old. Georgina has gotten so fit and is riding so well. She's working so hard to get back to the top of the sport. A clear round for Georgina Bloomberg on Juvena. As the second rider for the United States, that definitely helps their cause a lot. Lauren Huff had 4. That hopefully will be marked out if the rest of the riders can go clear. So always nice to have those clear rounds on the scoreboard. The next rider coming in for Venezuela, Emmanuel Andrade on Wilco. At 19 years old, this is only his 3rd Nations Cup. His first 2 were the Barcelona final last year and the WEG. How about that? Jumping into the fire. Emmanuel trains with Rodrigo Pessoa.
Team Venezuela took home the gold in last year's Central American Games, and they'll look to try to do the same right here in our Nations Cup qualifier. As again, Manuel Andrade has the second of 4 rides for Team Venezuela.
12-year-old Dutch warm blood, Wilco. This FEI Nations Cup is certainly well attended today. The stands are packed, huge VIP area plus the open stands. They actually stopped the entire horse show, all of the other 11 rings, so that everyone could come and watch this class.
I know it's a digital internal anything. He's sharp. He says he's sharp.
Oh, a late rail.
Okay.
So Venezuela finishes their second rider with 4 faults. Emmanuel Andrade on Wilco, only 4 faults. So they have 2 4-fault rides so far. See, in the triple combination, he jumps in really strong, and then this just catches him. Such a careful fence there. That 2 strides gets very short.
Turn our attention next to the next of our rides for Team Colombia. The second time around now for a Colombian riding team. Will look to better an 8-fault score from their first trip around here in our first round.
The next rider for Colombia, Juan Pablo Betancourt on Troyo Retiro.
A 10-year-old gelding that joins us next here today.
This is a 10-year-old gelding, and they like to say that he is the only Colombian sport horse in this competition, and he was the first Colombian sport horse born out of a Colombian sport horse mare, Colombian sport horse stallion, and born in this little town in Colombia, the little town of Medellin, where both Daniel and Elan Blumen are from. So the Colombian sport horse is thriving now in their first Nations Cup. Juan Pablo's 36 years old, second rider for Colombia. So again, this is the FEI Nations Cup Series. This is the first of 3 qualifiers in this region here in Ocala, Florida. The second will be in Mexico, end of April, 1st of May. And the third in Canada, I believe either June or July. And another clear round. The first clear round for Colombia, put in by Juan Pablo Betancourt. No faults, no jumping, no time faults. So they're hoping they can cancel that 8-fault round, and they're on a clear score, clear at an 8. Hopefully being able to drop that 8 faults. The best 3 out of 4 scores in each round added together for the final. And then if there is a jump off, the chef de keeps will pick 1 rider from each team involved in the jump off to come back.
One clear round for Team Canada, and now a second time around here, and the final of the second rides for our team. Tiffany Foster comes in to show.
Tiffany Foster comes in to ride for Canada. on Verity 3. We have two horses with the name Verity, but this one is Verity 3, 13-year-old Dutch warm blood. And talking to Tiffany as she was walking the course, she said this horse has just been so reliable for her in Nations Cup classes. He just can jump anything. And she first rode in her first Nations Cup in 2011, and she said she's been on just about every major team since then. She works for Artisan Farm. She's the head trainer there, working with Eric Lamaze. And has really developed a great combination with this horse. She just keeps going there up to the water. Most people have done 7 to the water and then 8 to the narrow there. She just kept going, and 7 there just looked like he ate up the ground so easily. She didn't interfere with anything. This is a very careful combination. And that might have cost her that. She didn't letting him kind of flow after the water and get a little long. It might have cost her that rail later on in the class. He was a little flat when he landed over the triple bar, had that middle one down.
Just a single knockdown for a
so only a single knockdown there, but she jumps in a little flat over that triple bar, and he just doesn't get up. He just trails his hindquarters and then really sets himself well for that. But that's too bad. Unfortunate 4 faults there in the middle of the combination, but she's certainly not the first one to have that down. So Tiffany Foster on Verity of Canada finishes with 4 faults. So the Canadians have a clear with Jan Kendall and 4 with Tiffany so far. The next rider in the ring, the third rider for Ireland, Kevin Babington and Shorapur. Kevin is a veteran of the teams for Ireland. Ireland has such a history in the show jumping history, such a great horse country. Robert Splain, the chef to keep, said that all of the riders on the team today are based here now in the States, but he comes over, he's been coming over watching them, and he's picked the team from here, obviously, but he said the States has been so good to the Irish. Great support, great owners, and great opportunity for them to gain terrific experience. Kevin had his famous horse, Carling King, who's now retired. He won so much with him, but this horse, Shorapur, she's really been she's only a 10-year-old mare, and there was a period last year where she won 4 or 5 Grand Prix in a row. She's extremely careful, very dramatic with her hindquarter, really gives you that little extra kick in the air. Kevin, a wonderful horseman, very hardworking. He and his wife have a feed business now, his wife and 2 darling daughters. Do a lot of their own work and with their horses. Shorapur is just such a trier. She really tried through that combination. She was a foot over all 3 elements. Oh, and a great clear round for Kevin Babington in Ireland with Shorapur. Beautiful clear. So how about that? Ireland has 3 clear rounds. So they are going to end on clear. Doesn't matter what their 4th rider does. They are tough. They have won this competition before, and they're looking pretty tough today. So Dara Kenny, Lorcan Gallagher, and Kevin Babington all putting in stellar performances, all jumping clear. The next rider from Mexico, Eugenio Garza Perez with Barriano. He is from Monterrey, Mexico. The other riders representing Mexico today all live in Mexico City. Eugenio's from Monterrey, but he lives now in the United States. Barriano is a 14-year-old Belgian warm blood gelding.
So it's Eugenio Garza Perez that we watch next here. Mariano, a 14-year-old gelding, her next to join.
The middle part of the course hasn't caused many problems, just the odd rail so far today. Most of the faults have come at the triple combination and then the final square oxer. Nobody's jumped in the water yet. And we've had only one time fault so far. Great effort there. We've really had to shorten for the C part of the combination. Excellent round. And Eugenio puts in a clear round, well under the time allowed. I love to see horses put in that extra effort. Watch him here in the between B and C, the one stride and then the two strides here. He really has to shorten there and stop himself to rock back on his hocks and jump that vertical. That's just a terrific effort. So far from Mexico, 13, 4, and 0. Hopefully they can drop that 13 faults, depending on what happens with the final rider. Okay, next we have the third rider for the U.S. team, the well-known Laura Kraut, and her 17-year-old Cedric. What a great horse this has been for Laura. He was just a young kid practically for the Hong Kong Olympics, where he jumped clear rounds and made a big difference in the Americans being able to win the gold medal there. He just won his first Grand Prix of the year, the Trump Classic in Palm Beach a couple weeks ago. Beat everybody in quite a large jump-off field. I've always enjoyed watching this horse. He just jumps like he's on a little pogo stick. He just pings into the air. And they're just such a fun combination. Laura just loves this horse, and you can tell that he really tries for her. Laura's represented the United States for many decades now. Her first Olympics was 1992 in Barcelona. She was the reserve rider. And then she rode in Sydney and, of course, the gold medal in the Hong Kong Olympics in 2008. Oh, my goodness grief. Looked like, it's hard to tell exactly what happened. Look, from this angle, I'm looking at it just like you all are. It looked like he was a little bit long and thought about just taking an extra stride, or he just thought about not giving it a try at all. Looks like he started to take off, but he was a little too far away and just put his feet back down. It's a triple bar, not an oxer there, so it looked like he just misjudged the takeoff. Somebody misjudged the takeoff, whether it was Laura or Cedric. It's hard to tell from here. But that's 4 faults, and then whatever time. She could have time faults with the time it's taking to get reset. That's a shame for her, because then he jumps it clear. Yep, she's going to have time faults here. Well, there you go. So she ends up with 6 faults, but it could have been a lot worse. But interesting, both Laura and Lauren Huff with Ocala had just sort of miscommunications with their horses at the triple combination, causing them to have their only faults there. So we are in the Hits Post-Time Farm in Ocala, Florida, watching the FEI Nations Cup, the first Nations Cup of the year for the new series, sponsored by FEI. There'll be 20 competitions in as many countries throughout the world, 45 nations competing over the series, all trying to qualify for the final in Barcelona in September. So now on course from Venezuela, Luis Fernando Larrazabal with Atladeta. This horse is quite green. He's only been jumping at well, he was just jumping 1 meter 40 just several months ago. So Luis said he's really been pushing to get his horse here and to get him ready. So this being, so far it's been a very fair course. Let's hope that he will be just fine. The footing couldn't be better. The day couldn't be more perfect. It's about 53 degrees. The sun is out, no wind. Lots of people in the stands, lots of encouragement. He added a stride there to the water, went a little wide. Make sure he had a good, straight entrance to the water jump. That's a good thing to do with the young horse. He didn't want to take any angle at all. So we'll see how he handles this triple combination. That's been a bit problematic so far. Beautifully done. And way to go, Luis Fernando Larrazabal, a clear round for Venezuela with his very young and inexperienced horse, just starting to jump at this level. Jumps that big oxer, 150 square oxer so easily. I believe he's found himself his Nations Cup horse.
So again, handily within that 77 seconds time allowed. Team Venezuela has their first clear round in the clubhouse.
So far we have 8 clear rounds in this first round of the FEI Nations Cup. And that's the first one for Venezuela. They have a 0, a 4, and a 4. So now from Colombia, we have Ilan Blumen. He's a cousin of Mark Blumen on Exacto. And this is Ilan's first Nations Cup. He's letting his horse look at that wall. It is a little straight. It's a quite imposing wall with no real standards. It's got flowers on the end, so it does have wings, but it's quite imposing, and those blocks on the top are very, very easy to knock off. Exacto used to be his cousin Daniel's horse, but Daniel said Ilan rides him so much better. The horse goes better for him, so he let him take over the ride. He's a really athletic, rangy going horse. Ten years old. The riders going later have certainly benefited from watching the earlier rides on this course, seeing how that combination rides. That's been the trouble spot so far. And he's close to the time allowed, just a little over a second over. But another clear round. So Colombia has 2 clear rounds on the board. 2 clears and an 8. So Ilan Blumen for Colombia rides clear on Exacto, well over the last fence. Looking up at that clock, he knows he was close. So hopefully the Colombia can knock out that 8-fault round. Their last rider goes clear, and they could also finish. They have the possibility, the potential to finish also on clear. The Irish already are on clear. So the third rider, again needing no introduction, Ian Miller, Captain Canada, on Dixon. Ian is the first Olympian to be in 10 Olympic Games, the first person from any sport, any country. to be in 10 Olympic Games. Dixon has an interesting connection to Ian's great horse, Big Ben. Big Ben had a sister who had a daughter who had Dixon. So it's a distant cousin, but still related to Big Ben. It's sort of fun for him, and he's out of the horse that won the World Championships in Lexington. 12-year-old Belgian warm blood. Ian on Dixon won the big money class, $1 million class in Spruce Meadows last September. At 67, Ian can still ride as well as anybody. He still shows everybody what it takes when he goes in the ring. He's got that drive. He's still got what it takes. He's definitely an inspiration. Ian's son Jonathan was the reserve rider for the team here. Ian took a little extra pull in front of that combination. He wanted to be able to be sure Dixon was set back on his hocks there, and a great clear round. A great clear round for Ian Miller of Canada with his rising star. He's already a star, not just rising anymore, Dixon. There he took a little extra pull. He wanted to really set him up to make sure he wasn't flat through this combination, but then he had to go a little bit for the B part. But jumps it clear. He knew exactly what he needed to do. So Canada now has 2 clears, 1-4, hoping to be able to erase that 4 if Eric Lamaze, their final rider, can go clear.
Entry number 1334 comes in now as part of Team Ireland, who already has 3 clean rounds. So guaranteed to carry forth a full 3 effort into the second round. We'll try to make it a sweep here today as Connor Swale joins us next.
So this is really turning out to be a great first round. Anything can happen in these Nations Cups. Boy, it can change dramatically between the first and second round. But so far at the FEI Nations Cup here at the Hits Post Time Farm in Ocala, it's going great so far. Next in the ring,
currently ranked
Connor Swale from Ireland on Grafton. Ireland already has 3 clears, so he doesn't need to even, doesn't matter what he does. But this horse Grafton is very new for him in these big classes. So I have a feeling he wants to go anyway just to give this horse experience, because they certainly may need his score in the second round. Connor has so much team experience. He's a veteran riding in the anchor spot, but a new horse for him in Nations Cup competitions and at this level. He's a 9-year-old Celle Francais and a horse with obviously plenty of jump. Connor lives in Canada now when he's not in Florida competing, and rides for Sue and Ariel Grange. Irish riders are always thinking forward. They're unusual for them to have a time fault. And 4 for 4 for the Irish team. How about that? 4 riders, 4 clear. What a display of great horsemanship today. Robert Splain, the chef de key, was certainly hopeful. He was really happy with his team, and a beautiful jump again over the last fence there, Connor, with Grafton. All 4 riders. See, how do you pick one to cross out? Not really fair to Lorcan Gallagher, right? But Robert Splain was really happy with his team. He felt like they were prepared. They were ready, veteran riders, and so he was very confident coming in. Okay, so now for the second rider, the second team in the last rotation, Mexico. The final rider, Nicolas Pizarro on Barbaro. This is not Nicolas's best horse, according to Henri Prudent, the chef de keep. And but Nicholas is a veteran. He's been the anchor for the Mexican team for the past 6 years. He's the #1 rider, #1 ranked rider in Mexico. He also trains the Sofia Larrea, who rode for Mexico earlier as the second rider on the team. And both Nicholas and Sofia are training now with Katie Perdant this year in Florida. This is a 9-year-old Oldenburg. Mexico is on 13, 4, and 0, so they're certainly looking to leave out that score of 13. So this score is very important. A clear would mean a lot for them. Remember, the qualifying points only count for the United States, Canada, and Mexico in this specific event. And he will end with 8 faults. 8 faults for Nicholas Pizarro and Barbaro for Mexico. Big jump over the triple bar. Has that down with his back feet there. And again, so he picks up his 8 faults at the 3 fences from home, and they finish on a total of 12 faults for the Mexican team, taking out the 13, 4 and 8, and a 0. Mexico ends on 12. And Beezy Madden from the United States is the final rider, the anchor rider on Simon for the United States. How many times has Beezy ridden the anchor leg? How many times have they needed Beezy to ride a clear? She did win the World Cup finals on Simon in 2013. And of course, we all watched on FEI TV her great display of horsemanship on Cortez at the World Equestrian Games last fall, where she won 2 bronze medals, team and individual. And Cortez was the leading horse. I love how quiet Beezy is as a rider, and she says, you know, the less you do, the more the horse can concentrate. And you see that with all of her horses. She allows them to concentrate and focus on the jump because she's so subtle and smooth. Her aids are invisible. Just a beautiful classic example of the American style of riding. Simon, formerly ridden by Jerome Doubledam, who was world champion this year at the WEG, we might add. And it took Beezy a little while to sort of get the feel of him. Simon likes to make a bid in front of the jumps, and she just learned to sort of go with that. Because Beezy really loves this horse. She says he's so capable and so careful. She really has a top string right now with Simon and Cortez and several others behind them. Great ride through there. And once again, in the anchor spot, Beezy puts in a clear round for the United States. So with 2 clears for the United States, Georgina Bloomberg and Beezy Madden, and 4 faults from Laura Kraut and Lauren Huff, they'll take away one of the 4, so the United States will end on 4. Great ride through the triple. You can see Simon make that extra effort to jump clear. Beezy rode that really well. She came in a little deep to the triple bar to keep him a little back, not letting him get flat coming in. So the United States ends on 4 faults. So of the 3 teams that have completed all 4 rotations, Ireland is on 0, but their points don't count for this qualifier. Mexico is on 12, the United States is on 4. Mexico, United States, and Canada are the only teams that can win qualifying points at this Nations Cup in this region. The second Nations Cup competition of the Furacía series is in Abu Dhabi next week. Now for Venezuela, we have Pablo Barrios and Antares. Pablo, 51 years old, ridden since he was a kid, and then he took off for 10 years. He studied architecture, and he was an architect for 10 years and then came back to riding. He now lives in the United States, and he is such an avid competitor. Wins competitions all the time. Great speed rider. He's been in 1 Olympic Games and 4 World Equestrian Games. Been the anchor rider for Venezuela now for quite some time. The most experienced rider by far. Antares is a 10-year-old Dutch warm blood gelding. It's nice to see all of these horses so far really respecting the water jump. Early in the year, they haven't jumped a lot of them yet, but they can tend to get so, blasé about the water jump, having to jump it so much. Good ride through that triple. And another clear round. These riders are really putting in top performances today, and that a lot has to do, I think, with the great footing here at this horse show at the Hits Post Time Farm. They really made a special effort, Tom Truzera's team, to put in the top-notch footing. It just makes a difference for these horses. They just really have a bounce off the ground, and it just makes all the difference in the world when you're jumping these big fences. So Venezuela also finishes on 4. We've got a lot of teams close together. They put up 2 clears and 2 4.
Roberto Duran will have the ride here today. He joins us aboard his 12-year-old mare, a Royal Dutch Warm Blood from the ARK Park.
So right now, Ireland is in the driver's seat with clear. Venezuela and the U.S. each have 4, and Mexico has 12. After all 4 riders have competed in the first rotation, in the first round of this FEI Nations Cup. Into the ring now from Colombia on Woklahoma. I like saying that, Woklahoma. Roberto Teran Tafur. This is a 12-year-old mare. And he needs to put in a clear. The first rider from the Colombian team had 8, and then the next 2 riders were both clear. So if Roberto can put in a clear round, he's got the pressure right on his shoulders. Colombia can finish clear, and they would be tied with Ireland. That jump horse is well over these fences. And he does just that. He handles the pressure just fine. A clear round. So now Colombia has a 3rd clear. Roberto Teran Tafur jumps a beautiful clear on Woklahoma. Really rides hard through there, and his horse responds. So they have 3 clears. They can take away that 8. And they are tied in the top spot. But lots of things can change, so we won't get too excited yet. These Nations Cups are funny classes. They can change drastically between round 1 and round 2. But it'll be fun, because if there is a tie at the end of round 2, there could well be a jump off. And 1 rider from each team that is tied will be in the jump off. Okay, so the final rider in this first round, Eric Lamaze, the anchor for Canada, Unzigli, PS. So if Eric goes clear, they will also be tied for first with Ireland and Colombia. If he has 4, he would be tied with Canada, would be tied with the United States. And Venezuela. Venezuela and the United States each have 4, so lots riding on this score. Eric is fresh off 4 wins in a row in major classes in Wellington recently. He is no stranger to the winner's circle. Best remembered, of course, with his great horse Hickstead, Olympic gold medalist in 2008. Best horse of the WEG in Lexington. One more fence. And he is clear. Ooh, and close to the time, but Eric's got a clock in his head. He knew where he was. So now we have 3 teams at the top, tied after the first round. Big jump over the water. It's great when horses really get lofty in the air. It helps them clear that water. So we have 3 teams tied at the top: Ireland, Colombia, and Canada. And then with 4 faults, Venezuela and the USA, and Mexico with 12. So the only teams, again, just to remind you, that can get qualifying points here are Canada, the United States, and Mexico. So it's really, really close competition. Canada and United States really want to win. They each want to win here and get those number 1 points. So there we see it. Ireland, Colombia, and Canada all with clear. United States, Venezuela with 4, tied for 4th, and Mexico in 6th, tied for 12th. Canada, United States, and Mexico, the only ones that can get qualifying points. So the other teams would just be blanked out. In other words, if Canada or the United States are 1st and 2nd, Mexico would get 3rd place points regardless, because just those 3 can qualify from this region. So I would imagine for the 2nd round that Martin Otto would go on his original plan and raise some of the fences. We will let you know. He told me when I was walking the course with him that he planned to raise several of the fences and probably spread the last oxer. So we'll see what his plans are as we watch the jump crew make any changes. So for the first FEI Nations Cup of the year here in lovely Ocala, Florida, at the Hits Post Time Farm, it's been a great first round. The horses have jumped beautifully. The course well designed, very fair, very inviting to these horses and riders. And we'll see a couple recaps. This is Dara Kenny, who is the leadoff rider for the entire class for Ireland. Jumped a beautiful clear. Dara riding in that beautiful style. He could compete in equitation classes here in the United States with Piccolo. Just a picture-perfect round, showing everybody how these lines ride and what the time allowed was going to feel like. All of the Nations Cup competitions are qualifying these riders for the final that'll be held in Barcelona. Everybody wants to get there. 2 of the 3 teams from this region, between Mexico, Canada, and the United States, will go to the final. 1 will be left out. So they're all vying to make this happen. Their next Nations Cup will be in Mexico at the end of April or the 1st of May, and then in Canada in the summer will be their 3rd and final qualifier. Circuit, beautiful sunshine, great footing, and so far this is rounding out to be a great competition. We have 3 countries, Ireland, Colombia, and Canada, all on clear rounds in the lead. In 4th place, the United States and Venezuela on 4, and Mexico on 12. Take the best 3 of the 4 scores in each round. So the second round coming up, things could change a lot. Big crowd today. In fact, the whole horse show, there's 12 rings total here in Ocala. They put on hold so that people could come and watch this exciting competition. So the start list for round 2 will go in reverse order of their scores so far. Mexico will lead off, then the United States and Venezuela, because if they're tied, they go in the order from the first round. The same for the final 3 riders. Ireland went before Colombia and Canada in the first round, so they will retain that same order. They're all on clear. If there is a jump off, if the scores are equal, after this second round, the chef d'équipe will choose 1 rider from each team to go forward into the jump off. So we see the start list of round 2. The riders within each team will ride in the same order, but the teams come in reverse order of their scores. Makes for a much more exciting finish. And then the final page of the order of go, the 24 riders in the first round will come back in a different order in the second round depending on their team scores, but they will remain in their same rotation. That triple combination you see right there to the right of your screen, that's where so many of the faults have come today in the first round. The triple bar to the 2 verticals, the course designed by Martin Otto from Germany, who worked with Olaf Peterson, mentored with him, and does a lot of competitions now, a lot of designing in the United States. His plan was to build a very fair, inviting course, and I believe he has done that. He's had some faults all around the ring, and we're going to go over do the course animation one more time if you missed it in the first round. The first line starts off at the far end of the ring, wanders down the diagonal, oxer to a vertical. Then they turn back up over a narrow oxer compared to the rest of the oxers on course, up the other diagonal to the first combination, a double vertical to oxer here across the middle of the ring, to another, the first quite big square oxer at 1.50 meters by 120 spread, or I mean by 170 spread. Then the line to the water, a narrow wall to the big water jump, which is 3.80 meters. We had no feet in the water in that round, which was nice to see. And then fence number 9 is actually an option. It's 2 narrow fences side by side, so the riders can choose their drift after the water jump. And then to the final line, a big oxer that sets them up for this triple combination, which has been the bogey. Rails have fallen at A, at B, and at C. A little long coming into B, and then a very short 2 strides to the out, and then the biggest fence on the course, a big square oxer that I cannot confirm yet, but the course designer had told me that he was planning to spread that last fence 150 by 170, and I saw the jump crew messing around over there, but I can't confirm for sure that any of the heights or widths have been adjusted. Again, the best 3 scores of the 4 riders to count, 4 faults for a knockdown, a refusal, foot in the water, elimination for fall, and for 2 refusals, or for exceeding the time limit. 1 penalty for every 4 seconds over the time allowed. And we only saw 2 riders with time faults in the first round, and 1 rider had a refusal which added on the time faults, but only, so the time seems to be quite lenient for the Nations Cup competition. Everyone seems to be well under the time allowed, so that has not been a factor. But as the pressure mounts and the tension comes to these riders in this second round, we could see them. With tension usually means the riders sort of start to take back a little bit more. They get a little tight, and sometimes that can translate into time faults. So we hope that doesn't happen, but oftentimes we'll see time faults in the second round that weren't there in the first round. So hopefully we'll have some more great clear rounds. We saw quite a few clear rounds in the first go, and the footing is really terrific. The riders have praised it. The weather couldn't be better. Horses are fresh. It's the beginning of the year. Again, this is the first qualifying competition for the new restructured and revitalized Nations Cup. It's been 106 years this Nations Cup team competition has been going on, and they've restructured it to make it a more global competition since FEI has started sponsoring the games. So the globe is divided into 7 regions, with Europe having 2 divisions and over 40 nations competing, 20 Nations Cups competitions during the year in as many countries, all vying for 18 spots. 18 teams will qualify for the final in Barcelona later this year. This competition, the FEI competition here in Ocala at the HIT circuit, is a $200,000 class. So there's a lot of money riding on this today, and the United States, Canada, Ireland, they have top squads. Venezuela, Colombia, Mexico, some younger riders, some experienced riders, but they've all put in good performances today. So it's really good horse jumping, good show jumping so far, and we should have a great second round as well. So we'll be starting momentarily. The trucks have just left the ring, the drag, and watering again in between the rounds to make sure that everything is really nice for these horses. So I believe we had 15 clear rounds out of 24 in the first round. So that's a lot of good jumping. A lot of nice horses here.
You have a bit of a new revelation here as we do scratch the first rider from Team Mexico. That still leaves 3 scores possible to bring in from Team Mexico here. So of course we still play a role here.
Also to recap, only the scores from from the United States, Canada, and Mexico will count, will qualify them in this region. So 3 teams vying for those really important points. And Robert Ridlin, the chef to keep for the United States, said they're taking this competition very seriously. So there's only 3 places they can qualify, 3 events here, one in Mexico and 1 in Canada. And only 2 teams of the 3 will go forward to the final from this region. So obviously the United States, Canada are taking it seriously. They've got their top squads. And here comes the first horse into the ring. So we understand the first horse from Mexico, Plasencia's Caracini, is not going to go. He has declined to come back for the second round. So the first horse into the ring is from the United States, Lauren Huff and Ocala. Lauren had 4 faults in the first round, just a little lack of communication in the triple combination. It looked like her little mare tried to take 1.5 strides instead of putting in that second stride coming out over the C part of the combination. So hopefully Lauren can get that fixed this time. Otherwise, she jumped a beautiful clear. Really nice round, just marred by 4 faults at coming out of the triple combination. So the United States is tied for 4th, but only 1 rail away from the top spot. So much can change after this round. The best 3 of 4 scores, and here we go with the second round. The best 3 of 4 scores from each team will count, added to the total from the first round. Oops, and an early rail. Just got a little bit long there. Got a little long at the takeoff and a bit flat. This little mare stands only 15 hands, and it's just amazing how she can jump these huge fences so easily. And she fixed what happened the first time. Great ride by Lauren. She really made sure she kept her feet on the ground and put in those 2 strides. And what a shame, though, that she had the second fence down, just a simple vertical, and jumped all the rest of the course so well. Here we see what happened. She just met it long and just kind of got a little flat and rolled it off with her back feet. So 4 faults for Lauren, added to her 4 faults from the first round.
Top 6 teams are separated with just 4 faults from the first round. We'll welcome in
The second rider now that we see, Andres Rodriguez from Venezuela on Verdi.
Join us now in round number 2 is entry number 1362. It's Verdi. Andres Rodriguez has the right next. His 13-year-old gelding Verdi takes the stage next.
Andre, again, has been in 10 to 12 Nations Cup, trains with Eddie Mackin now, has been with Eddie for the last 3 years. And he has the first rail down. Andre had 4 faults in the first round. And he's going to match that score. He's going to have to stay clear the rest of the way. And well done. I guess the 4 faults at the first fence got him a little sharper for the rest of the course. A shame to have that first one down, but he jumped the rest of the course beautifully. So he also, as the first horse, finishes with 4 faults in this second round.
Single knockdown at that Longines Oxford to start off our second round. 4 fault score.
So next in the ring, we have the first of the 3 teams that are tied for the lead. The first rider from Ireland, Dara Kenny, with Piccolo.
Number 2, our rider who turned in the first of the first round. It's entry number 1385 that comes in.
Dara was the leadoff rider for the whole class in the first round and just put in a textbook round. Beautiful, clear. Horse jumped easily. So it's always such a great feeling and a real honor to jump a double clear in any Nations Cup anywhere. So I'm sure that's what Dara is thinking now. He really wants that double clear. This horse just has such a nice balance going around. He really carries himself well. It just looks like it's very easy for him to jump from this balance. Love his expression. He's so alert, looking for the next one. Oh, looked like he drifted there to the right. Really drifted, like he might have been spooking from something as he was in the air over that fence, because the whole standard fell as well. There are a lot of people here. All of these fences coming towards the end or the diagonal, they're jumping right into the crowd. And the bloom is off the rose. He's had another rail there in the combination, so he finishes with a disappointing for him, I am sure, 8 faults. Well under the time, but 8 faults. So that's the first rails anybody from Ireland has had so far today. All 4 riders clear in the first round. You can see there he jumped the right corner, and it looks like he may have even hit that standard with his own foot, Dara, to have that down. He really drifted in the air. That was a good replay to be able to see that. The next rider on course, Daniel Blumen from Colombia with Concreto Apardi. 10-year-old Dutch warm blood. Daniel had 8 faults in the first round with this horse.
As again, the Colombian riding team brings back to the second round and no faults at all from the first round. 1 drop score.
And again, Colombia comes back with no faults, tied for first from the first round. Really good effort through that combination. Oh, and a first foot. Well, yep, he did have a foot in the water. That's the first foot we've had in the water today. And he rode it well. He did the continuing 7 strides, really met it off a forward stride, but he just dropped that foot a little early on the landing. So Daniel can say he had no rails down, but unfortunately a foot in the water is 4 faults just like a rail. So he ends up with 4 faults as well. So first 4 riders have gone, no one clear. But look how beautifully he jumps through the double here. Really way up in the air. Kicks his hind end out, giving it that little bit of extra. Beautiful line there, beautiful jumping. Really powerful off the ground. So as the first rider, Daniel, he does improve his score from the first round, from 8 faults to now 4, so he's got to feel good about that. Now we have the first Canadian rider, Jan Condell, on Showgirl. 15-year-old mare, and she jumped a picture-perfect round in the first go. Beautiful clear. Jan and Showgirl have jumped a lot of clears. I believe they had a double clear to help Canada win this class last year when it was held in Wellington in 2014. I know they were part of the team as they were in the WEG last fall. Jan and Showgirl have become a mainstay in the 2 years that he's ridden her. They've become a mainstay on the Nations Cup teams for Canada. Oh my goodness. We are seeing some little mistakes here you might not normally see. That's a sign of the tension, the pressure these riders are feeling. Again, there's just a miscalculation there for the takeoff. Jan did a good job getting things back together, finding his stirrups again, getting reorganized and not having to miss another jump. What a little trier this mare is. And our second rider in a row without a rail, but unfortunately a foot in the water. So no waterfalls in the whole first round, and now 2 in a row. Let's see what. Oop. He looked, I believe, it looks to me from this angle, Jan was a little long, and the mare said, I'm not sure I can leave from there. And she tried to sort of stutter step and take another step, but couldn't fit one in. So that looked like a little bit of a pilot error there. So Jan finishes on 4 faults after a clear first round.
5.90. That takes us in now with our first rider from Team Mexico. They scratched
So Martin Otto, the course designer, did raise several of the fences. He had told me, I'm not sure exactly which ones, but he had said he was planning to raise the middle of the combination, that B part, 11B. He was going to spread the final fence and raise several of the verticals around the course. The second fence certainly looks bigger. So he did make some adjustments because he had the 15 clear rounds in the first go. So now from Mexico, we have Sofia Lorea with Jumex Sport Archimedes. Sophia only had 4 faults in the first round. As I mentioned, Henri Prudent is the chef to keep here for the Mexican team. Both Sophia and her trainer Nicholas Pizarro are riding with Katie Prudent this spring to get some good coaching. This is a 15-year-old stallion with a lot of experience. The most experienced horse on the team. Can she be the first clear in this round? No. The C part of that combination comes down and the final fence. So Sophia finishes on 8, adding a rail to her 4-fault score from the first round.
Second round track, an 8-fault score for Sophia and 72.78.
This is a long course, very spread out. So Mexico now has their first rider was scratched, and so now they have one rider with 8. This is a long course. It's a big arena, and the fences obviously are spread out all over the arena. So could be some of these horses, it's early in the year, they could be a little more tired this round, but I'm not sure that would be it, because these riders make sure these horses have got to be quite fit. But it can play a little bit of a role. 2 rounds over the identical course, but now the only difference is in the second round some of these fences have been raised. So the second rider for the United States, Georgina Bloomberg, who put in a brilliant clear on Juvena, her 14-year-old Austrian warm blood mare, and she so would like to put in a double clear. Georgina's goal for this year, she told me, was to make the Pan American squad. A double clear here would certainly help her chances, would be nice to have on her resume when that team is being considered and chosen. Georgina jumped a double clear to help the U.S. win the Nations Cup in Gijón, Spain last year. Rode as the anchor rider. Fantastic, and there we've seen our first clear in the second round and our first double clear of the whole event. Terrific ride by Georgina Bloomberg and her wonderful mare, Juvena. The last fence, she is way up in the air. What a careful, wonderful, talented mare. Great combination. Georgina loves her mares, and she really has developed a terrific bond with this one. So the United States has 4 faults, which they're hoping to discard, and a clear. So that really helps the United States efforts. That puts them after these first riders have gone, that puts them back up on an even scale with, well, Ireland has, well, it's just too early to try to speculate, but that certainly helps. Those clear rounds are critical in Nations Cup competitions. The next rider from Venezuela, Emmanuel Andrade on Wilco, his 12-year-old Dutch warm blood. Andre has had 4 faults in the first round, and there goes that second fence, which has definitely been raised from the first round and has caused an issue. That's what Lauren Huff had down, and now has caused Emmanuel to have down as well. After really revving up for the water there, had a little trouble getting his horse back, but he did a good job. Just couldn't get him rated there. Tried to get him to wait to that deeper spot, and the horse just ran right through his hand. Didn't even really jump, just sort of chested that fence. And another rail in the combination, so he finishes on 16, a disappointing score for Emmanuel Andrade from Venezuela with Wilco. So the first one there, he just tried to rate him there, tried to get him to take in an extra stride, and the horse just didn't shorten, and just left the ground with no power. Just jumped through it, really. So now we have for Venezuela 4 faults and now a 16, which they hope they will be able to discard. That hopefully will be their drop score. So the second rider from Ireland, Lorcan Gallagher with Dictator, also jumped to clear in the first round. Again, all 4 Irish riders jumped clear. We'll see if Lorcan can be the first double clear. Rides for the Spy Coast Farm in Florida. 12-year-old stallion bred by the owners of Spy Coast Farm. Got a little deep coming in. They really had to push coming out. Great effort by Dictator to jump through that double. He really swung wide there to the water to get very straight. And 4 faults, another 4 faults. Clear rounds are hard to come by in this round. We had 15 clears in round 1, but only 1 so far by the United States, Georgina Bloomberg. So here we see the triple combination. He jumps this well. Has to really set up for the B part, make sure he doesn't get too deep to that. So Ireland has a has an 8 and a 4, hoping to be able to erase the 8. So with Georgina's clear, that puts the United States and Ireland with the same score so far. after 2 riders from each team have gone. Next in the ring, Juan Pablo Betancourt from Colombia with Troya Retirees, 10-year-old gelding. He needs a clear round to stay in first at this point. This horse has an interesting jumping style, I must say. Jumps higher than all the other horses, because he sort of dangles his front legs, so he has to jump higher. And just didn't make an effort at the water at all. The water should be the easiest fence on the course. It's just an extension of the galloping stride, but horses get blasé about it when they jump it a lot, because it doesn't really hurt to step in the water, and they just sort of lose interest. It doesn't hurt the same way it does to knocking a rail. And the last fence comes down, got a little too deep, because that front end on this is not so crisp as it could be. So he finishes on 8 faults. Juan Pablo Betancourt from Colombia. There you see that last rail going down. The horses really have to rock back on their hocks to get their front end up and out of the way, and he just doesn't make that extra effort. So Juan Pablo Betancourt on Colombia, 8 faults. The next rider for Canada, second rider for Canada, she's the final rider for the second rotation of teams, Tiffany Foster with Verdi. Tiffany had 4 faults in the first round. This is her 15th Nations Cup appearance for Canada, her first one being in 2011. Rub, but it stays. She had a rail, as I remember, in the first round in that triple, and now she takes both of the B and C down and the last fence. All 3 of the last fences down. Too bad. After jumping clear all the way to the final 3, she just jumps in really strong, and you can hear her saying, whoa, and he just doesn't get back and just has that down. Those planks are sitting on very shallow cups. Just really tears out the second one as well, and then has the last fence down to finish on 12. So that hopefully will be their drop score, but you never know. So with the scores coming in just after the second rider, the United States and Ireland look to be fighting it out for the top spot with 2 more riders from each team to go, and so much can change in these classes. They're just, you can never predict the Nations Cups.
Garza Perez. Entry from David and Monica Garza, 14-year-old entry. The gelding Variano shows no.
We've only had 1 clear after the first 2 groups of riders. Georgina Bloomberg from the United States and Juvena jumped not only a clear in this round, but a double clear. Now from Mexico, Eugenio Garza Perez on Bariano. And Eugenio was clear in the first round. He's one of their promising young riders. Getting valuable Nations Cup experience here. Too bad, only four. I thought he really rode into that combination well. He got deep to the first part to get his horse to jump up over the triple bar instead of flat. Tried to get him back, but this horse has a big rambling stride. He just couldn't get him to come back there. He's really trying. He's saying ho. He's taking a hold of him, but the two strides just got so short. His head went up a little bit in the air, taking off, and he had that down. So Mexico now, they didn't send their first rider. Then they have an 8 and a 4. So again, we are here on a beautiful day here in Ocala at the Hits Post-Time Farm show, and for the first qualifier of the FEI Nations Cup Series for 2015. And now into the ring from the United States, Laura Kraut, and her old familiar partner, 17-year-old Cedric. They're coming back after 6 faults in the first round, a little lack of communication going into the triple combination. Cedric stopped, and then they incurred 2 time faults. So Laura's such a great ring rider. You can be sure she's gonna put in 100% effort here, make sure things don't go wrong this time. It seems watching Cedric, he rarely rubs a rail. He either has it down, which is rare, or he might have an occasional stop, but he rarely rubs one. He jumps at least a foot over the fences. Here's where she had the trouble before, going into the triple. Oh my goodness, and I think he took off after 1 stride. It happened so quickly. That's a tight 2 strides, but he did it in 1. He took 1 stride and just leaped out. Oh, it looked like he was maybe favoring a leg there. But it just got her all off, and she's had to just make a big circle, get herself back together. And so she's incurring tons and tons of time faults. Well, not a good day for Laura. Not a good day at all. So here we see, he jumps the triple bar. 1 stride to B, and now here he takes another 1 stride, and it should be 2. And he's got to be well, he's a whole stride away. He's a whole stride away. She didn't expect that, so she almost falls off and has to just take a big tour of the ring to get herself back together again and back around to jump that final jump while the clock continues to tick.
A 9-year-old gelding that will join us next will be ridden here by Luis Fernando Lorazabal.
So she ends up with 15 faults. Just the 1 rail, but all the others, 11 faults in time. And now for Venezuela, Luis Fernando Lorazabal and Atla Detto, 9-year-old gelding. Larrazabal had a clear round in the first go. Not going to happen here. Still only one clear so far. And Luis Fernando Larrazabal from Venezuela with his mount end up with 8 faults. We'll see what happened here. He has the back rail of the oxer in front. He just started to cut down slightly and had that back rail. So Venezuela now has 4, 16, and 8, hoping to discard the 16. Funny things happen in Nations Cup in the second round, whether it's the pressure, for sure it's the pressure, because it's the same course. The riders know the distances, they know how to ride it. There are a few fences that have been raised and spread in this particular competition, but it's the pressure of riding for your country and knowing that clear rounds are pretty scarce. Kevin Babington from Ireland is our next rider with Shorepur. He's a veteran of so many competitions. I can't imagine the pressure getting to Kevin. This is a young mare, only 10 years old, Hanoverian, very careful, very capable. Interesting style. She's very dramatic with her hind end. She really kicks her hind end up, trying to miss the fences. Let's see if Kevin can put in the second double clear of the day. Wow, she almost jumped him off literally. My goodness, she's trying. Conditions couldn't be more perfect today. Footing is beautiful. Temperatures in the 50s. Cool enough for the horses to be fresh, and not so hot that they would be tiring. That's 2 strides is getting tighter and tighter in that triple combination. Oh, what an exciting round for Kevin. Boy, did that mare jump well. Looks like the more pressure he puts on her, the harder he pushes her, the more he presses her, the higher she jumps. She just soars over these fences and just gives such an effort. Great, great ride. So our second double clear now, one from the United States, Georgina Bloomberg, and now Kevin Babington from Ireland with the second clear. That puts Ireland back up to the top after Laura Kraut's sort of disastrous round for her, for the United States. But remember, there's that drop score, and things can change again after that final competitor goes.
They also have 12 faults currently.
Because we can't really tell what the drop score will be after the third round. We've got to wait till that final rider goes. And here from Colombia, Ilan Blumen with his big rangy 10-year-old gelding Exacto. This horse's legs just look so long. Which translates into an enormous stride for him. Ilan is a cousin of Daniel Blumen, who was the leadoff rider for Colombia. This is Ilan's first Nations Cup, and as I mentioned before, Daniel used to ride this horse, but he thinks he goes better for Ilan, so he's giving him over to him. Oh, that's too bad. He shortened so well. The horse was really listening to Ilan. He just rubbed that last fence off and then had the last fence down as well. It seems like when the horses have a rail in that triple, they're sort of giving up a little bit over the last fence here in the second round. Several riders now have had the last two fences down. There he just got a little careless, didn't jump high enough, and same thing at the last Oxer. So Colombia now has 4, 8, and 9. Ilan Blumen, 9 faults. So he incurs a time fault. One of few time faults we have had today.
So now, again, as we said, it begins to get interesting here as we have our
next rider from Canada, Ian Miller and Dixon. Ian showed everybody how to jump a clear in the first round. Beautiful ride by Ian.
Came into round number 2 with no faults at all. We'll look for our first clear round now.
This is definitely his next great horse. After all the success he's had over the years at Big Ben and many others, Dixon has really risen to the top for him, winning the huge class in Spruce Meadows last year. And he also holds a special place in Ian's heart, as he's related on the mother's side to his great horse Big Ben. Oh my goodness, he's at a foot on the tape. Didn't look like he splashed any water. He must have just hit the tape. Sadly, 4 faults for Ian there at the water. All right, so Ian at 67 years young only has a foot on the tape, finishes with 4 faults. We'll see, looked like he met it well and just, oh, he did see a little splash. He just jumped a little shy of that tape. No rails down in either round, but he did have a foot on the tape. So now Canada hopefully is sitting on 8, trying to use that 12 as a drop score. All depends on Eric Lamaze, the last rider's score. So now we begin the final rotation of riders. The last rider for Team Mexico, Nicholas Pizarro on Barbaro. Nicholas is the veteran. He's been the #1 rider in Mexico for the last 6 years, has ridden the anchor leg on all their Nations Cup teams in recent years. This is not his top horse. This is a young 9-year-old, Oldenburg. But we'll see how he fares in this round. He's coming back from 8 faults was his first round score. Trying to better that. Well over the water. But the rail following the waterfalls, that narrow fence, so much easier to knock those rails, but we haven't seen a lot of those rails come down today. And well done, finishes only on 4, betters his 8-round score from the first round. Nicholas Pizarro from Mexico and Barbaro. Here's where they had the 4 faults. The narrow fence number 9 after the water.
So in turn, that solidifies our point total here for Team Mexico. The total of 28 here today. Which takes us in now with Team USA, who has made a strong case here to raise themselves in the rankings here, where a clear round would...
Next to go from the United States, Beezy Madden and Simon. Beezy and Simon rode a beautiful clear in the first round, and they really need her score here. They really need a clear round from Beezy. United States has 4, 0, and 15, so they could erase that 15 with a clear and end on 4. That would put them in the running. Here we go. Beezy Madden, so experienced as the anchor rider, knowing what she needs to do to jump that clear round with Simon. Great performance by Beezy. Simon way up in the air.
As 4 faults will be the total in each of our 2 rounds of competition, and an 8 fault total.
So we see the United States finishes with 4 faults for the second round, going on those 2 clears, and Lauren Huff's 4, so they finished with a total of 8 after the first round.
So our next entry to join us.
So the next entry to join us here from Venezuela, Pablo Barrios and Antares. Pablo, the gold medalist from the Central American Games and very experienced rider, 51 years of age, 10-year-old horse.
Gelding Antares, our next to show, as Pablo's already turned in 1 clear round. We'll look to make it 2.
Pablo also jumped a clear round in the first go. But he's got too much ground to make up for his team to be at the top here. Venezuela was tied with the U.S. with 4 after the first round, but now even if he goes clear, the best he can do is 12 in this round, and the U.S. has already finished on 4. Well done, and that is our 4th double clear of this competition. 4th clear round for the second go, 4th double clear. We have 2 from the United States, Beezy Madden and Georgina Bloomberg. We have Kevin Babington from Ireland, and now Pablo Barrios from Venezuela, jumping the 4th clear round of the competition. So Venezuela finishes on 16 for both rounds, 12 for the second round, added to the 4 from the first round. Now we have Connor Swale from Ireland on Grafton.
Entry number 1334 on course next is Connor Swale and Grafton.
Connor also put in one of the 4 clears. A slam dunk for Ireland in the first round. All 4 riders going clear.
Susan and Ariel Grange, Grafton and Connor Swale. So is the anchor for Team Ireland.
Again, this is a young horse, new for the big competitions. But with a veteran rider, it all equals out. As Connor can give this horse the confidence over this course. Jumps it easily. We're down to the final 3 teams that were tied for the lead in the beginning of the second round. And a beautiful clear. Another double clear for the veteran Connor Swale with Grafton.
So there we have it, our second clear round. Will drop the 8-fault score and leave Team
And they finish with 4 faults for the second round. The Irish team finishes with 4. So that puts them right into the lead at this point in the competition.
So now our medal positions come into play here as our final 2 riders come into show.
And at this point, in looking at the scores, it looks like Ireland cannot be beat. We have the last 2 riders going, but Canada can only, the best score Canada can have is 8 faults, and the best score Colombia can have is 12 faults, so Ireland has won it. But now in the ring, the last rider for Colombia, Roberto Tarantafour on Oklahoma. Also jumped clear in the first round with this 12-year-old mare. But the heat is still on between the United States and Canada because they're the ones vying for qualifying points. Ireland doesn't garner qualifying points from this competition. They're not in this region. So the first place qualifying points would go to whichever of Mexico, United States, Canada, and Mexico's out of the running right now, is next in line, whichever one has the higher score here. And another clear round for the Colombian rider Roberto Terán Tafur with Oklahoma. Great effort through the triple combination. Really has to shorten for those two strides. And then soared over the last fence. So Colombia finishes on 12 for the second round.
Entry number 1368 that comes in to decide who comes away with the silver medal. Entry number 1368 on course now. It's Zagali PS.
And the final rider for Canada, Eric Lamaze Zagali, 11-year-old Dutch warm blood. So Canada cannot win at this point, but if Eric goes clear, he must go clear to tie the United States for second place. If he has a rail, the United States remains in second place alone. So lots of pressure that Eric Lamaze is certainly used to handling. And the rail falls. One rail, and Eric Lamaze finishes with 4. So Ireland wins this Nations Cup. As we watch Eric through the triple, that middle part of the combination caught him like it's caught so many horses today. So Canada will finish equal third with Team Colombia in the Nations Cup. Ireland wins it. United States with Ireland wins it with only 4 faults total. The United States is second with 8 faults. Colombia and Canada equal third with 12 faults. Venezuela with 16, and Mexico finishes last with 28 in the FEI Nations Cup. First of the series held here in beautiful Ocala, Florida at the Hits Post Time Farm on a wonderful day. Perfect weather, just couldn't, and huge crowd. Great spectator interest here. This is such a popular venue, and they stopped the whole show so all the exhibitors could come and watch this exciting class. Very nice to see such a huge crowd here in Ocala watching the FEI Nations Cup, the first time in Ocala, the first qualifier of the 2015 season. Again, that leads toward the finals in Barcelona. 18 nations will be represented in the final out of over 40 competing First place gives the riders 100 points, second place gives the teams 90 points, and third place 80 points. So the United States, because Ireland is not in this region, the United States moves up and gets first place points, which is critical, 100 points. Canada in second gets 90, and Mexico gets 80. Again, the next competition will be in Mexico after the World Cup finals in Las Vegas at the end of April. And then the third Nations Cup in the North American region will be in Canada this summer. So a great day for the United States, coming out on top. They were equal fourth coming into the second round, but anything can change, as it always does. Here's the series. Ocala, Florida is the first one. Coapexipan in Mexico, the second one. And TBC in Canada, which has been in the past in Spruce Meadows, will be the third one. So what a great time. Again, the Nations Cup proved to be one of those. It ain't over till it's over. The first round, there were 3 countries tied for the lead: Canada, Ireland, and Colombia. Venezuela and America sat in fourth, and then things changed. After the second round, the United States jumps to the top of the leaderboard. Ireland jumps to the top of the lead, stays at the top. The United States is second, which jumps them to the top of the leaderboard for the qualifying countries, which are United States, Canada, and Mexico. Canada and Colombia equal third. Setting up for the presentation now. The top 3 teams will come in. Once again, we had 5 riders jump double clear in this Nations Cup. Such an honor. First one being Georgina Bloomberg of the United States with Juvena. The other was another American, Beezy Madden, no surprise, with Simon. Third was Kevin Babington with his lovely young mare Shorapur from Ireland. Pablo Barrios from Venezuela with Antares. And then the second Irishman, Connor Swale with Grafton. 2 Irish, 2 Americans, and 1 Venezuelan jumping double clears. Only 5 clear rounds in the second go, 15 from the first go. So we're waiting for the presentation of the Nations Cup, the prize giving. Once again, Ireland comes out on top. but the United States in second gets first place qualifying points. So I think Robert Ridlin, the chef to keep, and his riders are pretty happy about that. They really wanted to beat Canada and Mexico to get those 100 qualifying points to put them well on their way to going to the final in Barcelona later this year.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, at this time, after 2 rounds of competition here in our Furacía FEI Nations Cup competition here at HITS Ocala, we have determined our top 3 finishing teams. And we welcome back.
So here they come in the ring, the winning team of this first qualifying event in Ocala, Florida for the Furacía Nations Cup Series. 4 young men, young riders. I know they'd love me to say young riders from Ireland. Robert Splain, the chef to keep. All 4 of these Irish riders based in the United States. They put on a brilliant performance today. All 4 jumping clear in the first round. 2 of them, Kevin Babington, Connor Swale, jumping double clears, ending on only 4 faults to win this Nations Cup.
Tom Suzeri joins us here, of course, as part of our HITS horse shows, as well as our USCF president, Christine Tauber, is our president of the jury.
Part of the presentation here, Christine Tauber, who's president of the U.S. Equestrian Federation, and Tom Suzeri, who's president of the HITS circuit here in Ocala, congratulating the riders. And coming in for their second place award, the all-girl American team with their chef to keep, Robert Ridlin. As I mentioned, the Americans, the U.S. team, will garner the first place qualifying points, although they would dearly like to have won here. Second place isn't bad if you get first place qualifying points, and that was one of their goals.
They'll be dismounting here and finding their position on the podium.
Third team's coming in, tied for third. Equal third, the team from Colombia. The team from Colombia and the team from Canada.
Take their top honors here as your gold medal winners in our Furacía FEI Nations Cup. Only 1 rail away from pure perfection here for Team Ireland, as Derek Kenny's ride aboard Piccolo had 0 faults in total. As did
other members of the presenting party, John Madden, who's the FEI first vice president, and Mr. and Mrs. Christian Oliver from the presenting sponsors, Edge Brewing Barcelona. They're joining Tom Suzeri and Christine Tauber in the ring to handle the presentation and congratulate the competitors. Lots of fun prizes in this Furacía presentation. The horses all get their beautiful rugs with the Furacía Nations Cup imprinted on them. The riders get the sashes, ribbons, and silver trophies.
so as our winners find their place on the podium as our gold medal team from Team Ireland, we, of course, as is tradition here, will play Ireland's
So there's our
national
Team
anthem
Ireland.
to celebrate their victory.
Dara Kenny, Lorcan Gallagher, Kevin Babington, and Connor Swale. And now the national anthem of Ireland. And so we'll say goodbye. Thank you for watching. I'm Melanie Smith-Taylor, bringing you the first of the Nations Cup, the FEI Nations Cup Series here, first time in Ocala, Florida. See you at the next one, Abu Dhabi, next week.
From taking a jump off to determine who came out on top. Team USA, and set to keep Robert Ridland take home the silver medal with 8 faults total, just 4 faults in each round for Team USA to take home the silver. And again, Lauren Huck, Georgina Bloomberg, Laura Crowd, and Beezy Madden take home the silver here today in our Furcia FEI Nations Cup. An outstanding showing here by all of our teams, but what a great statement here for Team USA. As 8 faults in total, just a single rail in each of our rounds counted towards their 2-round total, as Ocala, Juvina, Cedric, and Simon turned in great competition days, with Lauren Hoff, Georgina Bloomberg, Laura Kraut, and Beezy Madden turning in 8 faults total to take home the silver. Then our bronze medalists who come in with 12 faults will be Team Colombia. Team Colombia with the 12 faults, receiving the bronze is Daniel Blumen with Concreto Apardi, as well as Juan Pablo Betancourt and Troya Retiro. Alon Blumen with Exacto LS and Roberto Terran aboard Wacklahoma. And so now to present your Furcia FEI Nations Cup trophy, we welcome in our foreign judge here of our judges jury, Yolanda Martian, escorted by our host to congratulate our winning team and presenting our silver salva and our Furcia trophy to our chef de keep for Team Ireland, Robert Splain. Next, we welcome with our flowers to present to our winners, Mr. and Mrs. Christian Oliver. They're escorted by our host to congratulate our winning team members from Team Ireland. They'll be bringing those beautiful sashes and rugs to our winning team, rosettes for our top 3, but of course as our winners, Team Ireland take home the top honor. Next, we welcome to congratulate our winning team, Team Ireland, Mr. Tom Strazzeri and Christine Tauber, our heads, our American show jumping, our HITS horse shows, and our USCF Federation. Joining us now to congratulate our winners, Team Ireland, Chef to Keep, Robert Splain. As again, Derek Kinney, Lorcan Gallagher, Kevin Babington, and Connor Swale ride to the top finish here in our Furacea FEI Nations Cup. Now making their way to congratulate our silver medalist and bronze medalist. Again, Team USA takes home our silver medal here today. Chef to Keep Robert Ridland joins us here with Lauren Huff, Georgina Bloomberg, Laura Kraut, and Beezy Madden to claim the silver in our Furacea FEI Nations Cup. And of course, our congratulations to our bronze medalists receiving the accolades here for a third place finish in a tie. In fact, Colombia will take home the third place honors with Chef to Keep Marcel Delestre. As again, it was Daniel Blumen, Juan Pablo Betancourt, Ilan Blumen, and Roberto Terran that take home the bronze medal here today with 12 total faults, separated equally by 4 faults between our top 3 teams. Team Colombia takes home the bronze. So now at this time, as we have congratulated all of our entries, we do want to let them celebrate. So we'll invite you to send our Team Ireland back to their mounts here to remount for one last lap of victory here today. The round of applause, and we'll ask you to stick around for even more applause as we have one more victory gallop in store for us here after an exciting competition. And our thanks once again will go to Longines, FEI's top partner, as well as its official timekeeper and watch. The Swiss watch brand, proud to be associated with our 2015 edition of the Furacea FEI Nations Cup here in Ocala as our official timekeeper. Longines' passion for the equestrian sports backs all the way up to 1878. And today, the brand is involved in the most important equestrian events all over the world, such as this afternoon's very special 2015 Furacea FEI Nations Cup qualifier. We wish all of our riders the best of luck in Barcelona in our Nations Cup finals. So remounted and ready, we'll ask you to cheer them on. Once again, here are your top 3 teams in our 2015 Furacea FEI Nations Cup. And leading the way, it's Team Ireland who take home the gold. An outstanding showing here by all of our riders, but none better than Team Ireland. Team USA right on their heels, and Team Colombia rounding out our top 3 competitors. An outstanding showing here by Team Ireland to claim the gold.
featured events here in our Ocala Horse Property Stadium, but that comes up tomorrow and the next day. As here for today's schedule, we're not done. We still have more in store for us here as we're going to ride for $10,000 in prize money now.